We know that if we see a right-angled triangle set up like this, we can use trigonometry to find a missing side or a missing angle. In this clip, we're going to be looking at using more advanced trigonometry to find missing sides and angles in non-right-angled triangles. In particular, in this clip, we're going to focus on using something called the sine rule. The first step in using the sine rule is recognizing when you actually can use it. I've already said that you can use it in non-right-angled triangles. The thing to remember about the sine rule is that it's all about opposites. So for example, if we look at this one, the side I'm looking for is opposite this angle here which I'm given, and I'm given another opposite pair, this side and this angle, so I can use the sine rule here. Looking at this one, the angle I'm looking for is opposite this side which I'm given, and I have another opposite pair, this angle and this side, so again I can use the sine rule here. To be able to use the sine rule, we're going to need a formula. Let me show you how we get that formula. We start with any side divided by the sine of the opposite angle. And that will be equal to any other side divided by the sine of the opposite angle for that side. And that will also be equal to the third side divided by the sine of the opposite angle for that side. I told you this was all about opposites, didn't I? Now, if we label our triangle more formally, using lowercase letters for the sides and uppercase letters for the opposite angles, then we can create a formula. And we use this version of the formula to find any of the three sides. If you're actually looking for an angle rather than a side, then we simply flip the formula to get this. Now, a really important point about the sine rule is that when you're doing a question, you only ever need two of these three things. So, for example, you might be using the A's and the B's, but you won't use the C's. Or you might use the A's and the C's, but not the B's. The two that you use will depend on the question that you're given. I'm now going to take you through a typical question using this rule. I can see here that I've got an angle and an opposite side, and I've got an angle and I'm looking for the opposite side. Because it's all about opposites, I'm going to be using the sine rule. I'm looking for a side, so I'm going to be using this form of the sine rule. So the side I'm looking for is x. I start by writing that down, and that's going to be over the sine of the opposite angle, which is 28. Then that's going to be equal to the other side that I've got, which is 9, over the sine of the opposite angle, which is 76. To get the answer, I need to rearrange this to make x the subject. So what I'm going to do is multiply both sides by sine 28. So I get 9 times sine 28 over sine 76. It's now just a case of using my calculator correctly to get this answer. You'll notice that in this question I'm not told how many decimal places or significant figures to round my answer to, so I'm just going to round it off to 3 significant figures. I get 4.35. Now what I found is the length of a side, so the units for it must be centimetres. Here's one of those for you to try now. Press pause and have a go. When you're ready for the answer, press play. So you're looking for the side x, so start with that, and that will be over the sine of the opposite angle, which is 31. This is going to be equal to the other side, which is 19, over the sine of the opposite angle, which is 112. Rearranging to make x the subject gives us 19 sine 31 over sine 112. and typing this carefully into the calculator and rounding to 3 significant figures gives us an answer of 10.6. Because it was a side that I was looking for, the units are centimetres. Out of interest, if you followed this through exactly and still got the wrong answer, it might be that your calculator is in the wrong mode. You need to make sure that your calculator is set up in degree mode. Also, if your calculator opens a bracket after you've pressed the Sine button, you've got to make sure that you close it again. That might happen here as well. Now in this question, I'm looking for an angle here. I could use this version of the sine rule, but it's actually a lot easier if I flip it like this before I start. Now the angle I'm looking for is y, so I start here with the sine of y, and this is going to be divided by the opposite side, so that's 14. That's going to be equal to the sine of the other angle that I've got, that's 83, divided by the opposite side, that's 17. Now I can rearrange this. So sine y will be equal to 14 sine 83 over 17. So y equals inverse sine of 14 sine 83 over 17. Typing this into the calculator carefully and rounding to 3 significant figures gives me 54.8. This time it's an angle, so the units must be degrees. Just in case you've forgotten how to do inverse sine in your calculator, remember for this part you need to press Shift and then the Sine button. Here's one for you to try. Press pause and have a go. When you're ready, press play. Here's the answer, which I've rounded to 3 significant figures. We're now going to look at some exam-style questions. In the exam, you won't actually be given the formula. So here's your first real exam-style question. In this question, you're looking for the length of the side LM. One tip for you is to label the side LM with an X. Press pause and have a go. When you're ready, press play. Here's the answer. Now the best way to get good at the sine rule is to practice, so here are 4 more questions for you. Press pause and have a go at them. When you're ready, press play. Here are the answers. Now here's a more difficult question for you to try. You need to use a bit of imagination on this one. You won't be able to get the angle you're looking for directly, but you will be able to find it if you remember that the 3 angles in a triangle always add up to 180 degrees. Press pause and have a go. When you're ready, press play. The first thing you should have noticed in this question is that you've got a pair of opposites here, so you know you're going to be using the sine rule. We're looking for the angle ACB, so I've labelled that as X. If I look at the diagram, I haven't got the side opposite that, but I have got this side, which is opposite this angle, which I've called Y. So I used the sine rule to find the angle Y first of all, and I got the answer 23.24 degrees. So I know that this angle here is 23.24 degrees. To find the angle I'm looking for, all I have to do is remember that there's 180 degrees in a triangle. So if I take this and this away from 180, I get the angle that I'm looking for. To 3 significant figures, the answer is 14.8 degrees. Now this is the hardest kind of question that you will see on the sine rule. I'm going to give you one clue, and that's that you're going to actually have to use the sine rule twice in this triangle. Press pause and have a go. When you think you've done it, press play. To start this question, I'm looking for the length of AC, so I'm going to label that X. Now this side is opposite this angle over here, so I'm going to label that y. I've got one pair of opposites here, but for this side that I'm given, I don't know this angle. So my plan is this. I'm going to find this angle here first, then use this to find this angle, and then use this angle to find this side. So the first thing I want to do is calculate the size of angle Z, and I'm going to use the sine rule to do this. I get the answer 34.50 degrees. I've rounded this to 4 significant figures because I want my final answer to 3 figures. So I now know that angle Z is 34.50 degrees. The next thing I want to find is the size of angle Y, and I'm going to use the fact that the 3 angles in the triangle must add up to 180 degrees. So Y will be 180 minus 136 minus 34.50. I get the answer 9.50 degrees, so this is the size of angle Y. Now I want to use the sine rule again to find the size of angle X, which is opposite angle Y. I get the answer 3.73 rounded to 3 significant figures. This was the length of a side, so the units are centimetres. Notice that when I did this question, I used this pair because I had to, because I was looking for X. But for the other pair, I chose these two that were originally given to me in the question. I could have used this pair if I wanted to, but I decided to use these ones.